Greetings and welcome to another episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max. In the last video we were looking at adding some armor plating to the front portion of the head part of this vehicle, and we're going to continue doing that, but first I think I need to mirror this off so we can get an idea of how everything's starting to look. So let's see here, we have an editable poly for the base part of this. Now I've still got all these other pieces that I've tacked onto the side. I'll deal with those later. For now, let's just drop on the good old mirror modifier. And of course, by default, it's going to come in at the wrong angle. It almost never comes in at the right angle for me, at least to begin with. So we'll switch that to Z, we'll check copy, and there we go. Fantacular. All right, now let's take kind of a close look here. Things overall, I think, are looking pretty good. Some interesting lines going on here and there, but overall, it seems to be holding up. So let's see, if we take a look at some of our pictures, there's some plates that I'd like to add to the front part here. Now these are they're going to be pretty easy to put together. Let's see, we just got these three kind of asymmetrical areas here. Actually, none of them really looks like the other. We got one that's got what looks like a cutaway right up here in this area. We got another one that's pretty squared off. And then a third one over here, which is square across the top, but we've got this little cutaway down here. So what I'm going to do is this. Let's go over to create shapes, and let's do a rectangle. And I'll go ahead and leave auto grid on, and let's create the one that's kind of dead center. So I'm just going to eyeball pretty much where this goes. Say something about like so, just for a moment. So I can always change that. Let's see here. Yeah, it doesn't, well, it kind of is going to end up coming down a little bit further. I've got to put this little base plate down here. There's the great big kind of vent exhaust ventilation thing. And that's going to clip on, but it does look like we might end up having to create a small extrusion down here along the bottom of the head. So let's take a look at what would be involved in getting that into place. Shouldn't be much. Let's see, if I jump all the way back up here to this guy, go down to the editable poly level, and let's see, that looks pretty good. We could probably double check the width over in the front view, which is technically the back view. So I'm just going to go to views and go straight to the back, and let's fade this up. And we can't see much like that because our image planes are still set to a lower quality. So I think this is our material that we're using for the front, so let's just take this and switch it over to Direct 3D. Just watch out, in this case, this is going to, of course, slow down our undos a little bit more. But it sure does look a lot nicer. And so now we can get an idea of the width of that ventilation area. So we see kind of where that's going down to. Now, if I have this guy selected, and let's see, if I jump kind of back and forth here, yeah, here's what I'm gonna do. Here's how I'm gonna handle this. Let's go ahead and shade everything back up so I can kind of see what's going on a little more easily. I'll zoom out, and let's grab the cut tool, and I'm just gonna make a nice cut all the way back along the length of this thing. We'll right-click. That's really all I needed. Now, we can run this all the way up and over if we so desire. I'll get it to about here before I stop it, and then if we need to continue it at some point, I'll worry about that later. Now, let's see here. Let's grab some faces. And we don't want to cut anymore, so let's grab you. Actually, let's see, you polygons. There we go. Now, I have some pictures of the bottom, which will tell me if I really need to extrude this whole thing. I probably do, is going to be my guess. There we go. Yeah, we could probably just go ahead and extrude the whole thing and then build all of this other stuff sort of on top of the extrusion, like use the extrusion as a foundation. So let's do that. Let's do extrude. It doesn't need to go down very far, I'm thinking. So maybe it's right about there. Let's double check against some of our other pictures, like what we were just looking at a moment ago. Now see, I'm seeing these lower areas that I've got sticking out the front here, not going down anywhere near as far. So I think I'm going to try to switch over to that. So let's click OK here. And then we can grab this guy, and we should be able to just slide him more or less straight up. Now, that does make an interesting line there. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to let that kind of ride. Now, let's see. If we grab all of this... Now, can we select by angle here and make that a little easier on Zach? Yeah, a little bit. Now, if I make that planar, what do we get? That's pretty nice. And let's see. I'm going to do a couple of things here. Let's rotate that. Actually, I don't want to rotate that at all the way it just rotated. Oh, that's really scary. Looks like we grabbed a plate or a panel there that we didn't want to, so we need to make sure we undo that. Make planar, and we need to rotate around and find this guy. He needs to be deselected. So let's see, if we just grab you, that looks pretty safe to me. Except for that guy, so we need to make sure that switch off back facing, or ignore back facing is on. It's like one of my favorite settings in Max. And we'll just make that planar. Okay, so that cleans that up a little bit. We can grab edges, say here, and I'm going to pull this in just to line that up a little. And that, again, that makes a little bit of a weird edge there. So let's just check that. I think that's going to fly. I don't think anybody's going to say anything about that. We'll just let it roll. Okay, so we've got our extrusion here along the bottom. And the only reason I did that was because that'll kind of help us gauge the proper depth for this plate that we're building up here. So let's switch the mirror back on. Let's grab our little shape here. Now I need to convert this over to an editable spline. And then I'm going to drop a bevel on it. And it looks like I need to change my settings on the bevel, which is not surprising. Let's go ahead and uncap the start of it because we don't really need that. Let's take our initial height, we'll pull that way down. See if we can get away with something like 0.6. There we go. And that outline is a little intense, so let's try 0.3. And I think that'll work all right. Now, down to the editable spline level, I need to grab some vertices here, and I'm going to extend this downwards a little bit. So let's grab these guys now. I'm going to switch over to local mode to slide these down kind of along the surface. And so now if we show the end result, we have that first panel, which is nice. I'm wondering if it's a little wide. Yeah, it looks like it is. We need to kind of bring that in on both sides. So let's grab our vertices on all four corners, and I'll just scale those in. Let's use selection center. And somewhere right around there looks a lot better. Okay, so that's coming along. Now, I think to save myself a little bit of hassle, what I'm going to do is just shift drag a copy of this guy over here, and then we'll shift drag another copy over here. We'll get the spacing just about right in between the two. Now, if we take a look, I've got a little cutaway down here in the lower left corner of the right panel. Everything else about it looks relatively square. So let's work on this guy first. So let's switch over to vertices first thing, and we need to clean up what's going on over here. Now it looks like I had the wrong guy selected, so let's jump out, grab you, there we go, fantastic. And we'll slide this in, and if you want you can switch on end result and kind of see what's going on here. So that looks pretty good. Now, let's do something a little crazy. Let's jump back up here, and I'm going to trash out the bevel. And then let's get out of subobject mode, grab this guy, and let's see here. If we jump down to the editable spline, we should be able to grab attach and attach this guy. So now they're part of the same spline object. And let's do the same thing over here. So we'll just right click, come over here and trash out the bevel, come back over here and grab the editable spline, attach, okay. So now they're all part of the same spline shape, which is handy. We need to edit the vertices here on this side. Now, I'm kind of eyeballing this. If you were really inclined and you wanted everything to be nice and accurate, you want to double check measurements and make sure that these had the same gap on one side as they do on the other. I think it's the kind of thing we can just kind of look at and get close enough, and any discrepancies will just get lost in the detail anyway. Also, you'll notice we've got some curvy edges. I need to double check and make sure the other side isn't suffering from that. I mean, they're straightening out, but I like to make sure that that's not going to be a problem later, so I will tend to right-click on these and make sure they're set to corner, and that solves the problem. Okay, so looking nice so far. Now if we take a look, we've got a little cutaway here. We've got what looks like, if you look really close, to me anyway, like some sort of cutaway up along here. So let's take care of that. Also, I'm thinking these plates are still a little bit on the thick side, so we can grab our bevel, let's take its height, and let's pull that down to something like 0.3, so now they're a whole lot thinner. Now, for starters, let's go back to our Create panel. Let's switch off Start New Shape. Let's grab a rectangle, make sure Auto Grid is on, and I'm just going to draw a box that cuts into the upper corner of the left-hand panel. And I think that made it onto the same shape. If it didn't, it's no big deal. And let's do one more that cuts into the lower portion of both these guys. And it looks like those two are on the same object, but they're not the same as our master object, which is cool. Let's come back over here. Let's jump down to the editable spline, and we'll attach you guys. So now everybody's kind of doing the same thing. I'm going to switch off Show End Result for a moment. Let's grab splines, and let's see, a couple of things here. Let's see, if I hit F2... Oh, we still have attach on. Well, that's no wonder then. Let's see, if I grab both these... I can't remember if I've ever tried this with two splines. Yeah, it's not going to really care for that much. That's okay. Let's do this. Let's shift drag a copy of this guy over just a little bit. So there's two of them. Now I'll grab you, Boolean this guy, and then get out of here and grab you, Boolean this guy. So that takes care of that. Now let's come over here, grab this guy, Boolean, and that dude. Now if we show our end result, we have our cutaways, which is amazing. Alright, now if we take a look back at our picture, we've got some little thingy that needs to be stuck in there. We've got some stuff over here, some random boxy stuff. You know, I'm just going to make these up. Keep it easy. So let's go out of shapes. Actually, well, you know, thinking about that, we might be able to make that work. Let's just see what happens. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't. Let's go to Create Shape, and let's do a rectangle. And Auto Grid is on, so let's just draw a little rectangle in here. And let's see. If this is interesting. I don't know if I've ever tried this particular trick either, but let's just draw a little rectangle there. And similar, actually let's do the same rectangle. So actually I'm going to right click, and we need to convert that over to an editable spline. Grab the spline all by himself, and I'll just shift drag a copy directly below. And what else? There's nothing in there. There's a little guy here. So let's go back over to the Create panel, and let's just make a little funny rectangular piece here. We'll turn off Start New Shape, and I'll make another one just inside it, which I can edit later, of course. Now, whether or not this behaves exactly the way I want it to and saves me all kinds of hassle and stuff, well, we'll just see. So let's see here. Let's go back all the way to this guy, jump down to the editable spline level. Let's turn off all this and attach you. Now, what does that look like? Oh, wow, that's exactly not what I wanted. But that's okay. That can just be a separate object. I just had to try. So we'll just put another bevel modifier on that. Actually, let's just put another bevel modifier on all these guys. Except for this one. I think we could probably get away. Isn't there a spline kind of tucked away right there? There should be. Yeah. So that guy can be part of everything. Now, these other guys, let's see here. Let's copy off the modifier. Let's go back over to these shapes, if it'll let me select these. That'll do. And let's attach you and attach... Okay, that all came as one. Excellent. Right click and let's paste. And that looks really bad. We probably don't want to do that. So we'll jump down to the editable spline level. Let's grab splines. And it's probably, if I had to guess, it's just a size issue. Let me just try scaling that down, see what we get. Yep, that's what it was. That bevel was just a little bit too big to accommodate what was going on there. So let's do that again. We'll just jump down to the spline level once again. And I'll scale that some more. Let's show our end result. And that doesn't look too bad. Now, a couple of things, just because maybe I'm getting a little too nitpicky here. Also, maybe I'm too close. Let me step back away from everything and let me get my material on, because I'm thinking that bevel is a little too heavy. But it's really hard to say when you've been sitting right on top of it the whole time. So let's drop on our material. And that's totally the wrong material, by the way, for anybody who's curious. I want this guy. Yeah, that's going to work. I don't think I need to make any other changes to that. From back here, I think that looks just fine. So that takes care of that little area. So let's jump over here. We've got another little panel under here, which looks like it's a groove panel like we've been carving up to this point, but I think I'm actually going to take a little bit of artistic license there and not do that. So let's see, if I just grab objects, grab a box, and we just draw a box right about there and give it a little bit of height, get the move tool out, and in X we just zero that out so it's dead center. Do a couple of things here. Let's take its height and pull it down because it doesn't need to be anywhere near as tall as it is. In fact, I'm going to make it fairly thin. Then we'll convert this over to an editable poly. Let's grab this great big polygon. I'll hit F2 so it's nice and highlighted for everybody. And let's bevel it with a lot less bevel than that, because that's just crazy. Okay. So I think that's going to work. Let's go ahead and get our material on that. All right, so that's certainly coming along. Okay, now what else have we? We've got these little funny guys up here, and I think we could probably just put those in and we'd be done with the front, the bulk of the front area. So let's just put something together real quick. Now, did I just nudge that? It looks like I did. Yeah, I did. So we don't want to nudge it. Also, it looks like I've got a seam up here at the top, so I'll need to double check my vertices and make sure they're all zeroed out, which I can take care of here in just a little bit. For now, let's go to Create. Let's grab a box, and let's make sure that Auto Grid is on, and I'll just draw out a little boxy shape with a little bit of height, frame up on it. And let's do a couple of things before we convert it. Let's pull the height back down. Let's convert it to an editable poly. Let's grab this guy, and let's see here. Let's do an inset. to about, oh, yay so far. Click OK. We'll do an extrude, like so. Now, I'm going to switch over to edges, and let's just convert this over to an edge ring. I think that'll get everybody. Let's do a quick chamfer. Doesn't have to be that much, just a little bit. And let's hit 4 to grab polys. In fact, let's also do polys by angle so we can get everybody kind of at once here. Let's do a bevel. A little up, a little in. Looks a little funny there at the corners, but I think we can clean that up with a quick bit of target welding. Let's see here. If I grab this guy, I just want to frame up on that guy and then zoom out a little. There we go. That's much nicer. Let's see. Let me just target weld that guy down here. So you go there. All right, now if I hit F4 to see my wires, yeah, that's what I'm looking to do. So I just need to invert that. So you go there, you go there, and you go there. Excellent. All right, so now quick material drop. And 16.43, let's copy that, shift drag out a guy here, and, well, I mean, we could always use a little mirror trick. But let's say we don't want to, so we'll just click OK, paste this in with a positive value, and he just goes right over there. So, let's see, I think we've got pretty much the front face of this just about ready to rock. There's a little bit of a seam kind of line problem going on here that we need to clear up, which you can see. Let's see, if we jump into vertices, and let's make sure we're moving in world. Now let's double check our snap settings. Let's snap to vertices. And let's just see how well that actually does what I want it to. Yep, that works great. Now, let's see, if I grab both these, I should be able to snap them up to here, and then that should be pretty planar. Should solve that problem. Now, if I check my end result, ooh, all kinds of nastiness, eh? Oh, it's because I have some sub-objects selected, so let's deselect those. Come up here to Editable Polyland, and it looks like what we probably ought to do would be to collapse all this stuff down and then run a make planar. But before we do that, let's double check what's going on over here, because we need to make sure that all this stuff gets caught by the mirror. Now, if we're just going to be mirroring over and we're not worried about much, we can just pull it over and not worry about hitting the center line, especially if we're about to be collapsing the mirror anyway. Or at least you'd think so. I guess not. I could have sworn, I'm probably thinking the mirror cut tool from Maya. You gotta forgive me, my brain goes back and forth between the two applications because I use both of them. And sometimes it's easy to forget what one does and the other one doesn't. So let's just get those snapped over. I'll jump back down to the editable poly level. Let's turn off show end result, and we can grab you. No end result, please. Vertices, let's grab this guy, and we'll just snap him right back to here. Grab this guy, and we'll snap him. Oh, we got a little bit of an offset there. Wicked. I really enjoy snapping in Max if you haven't caught on yet. Let's see if we can do it the old-fashioned way. grab this little vertex here, and we'll just right-click his world position in X, and that should solve the problem. There we go. So now that seam is history. Alright, so let's see here. Let's just see if we can just condense all this down. So, right-click, convert to editable poly. Now, let's grab these guys by angle, let's say within 10 degrees of each other. And let's make these planar to one another. And I don't want to hear from the communication center. So I should clean that up. Now, are we still experiencing a little bit of a split there? Do I need to weld all these together? It looks like I might. Let's find out. Yep, we do. But that's okay. I'll deal with that a little bit later. For now, I'm not too terribly stressed about that. Alright, so we've got all this. Let's get all of our little gadgets and gizmos and detailed parts and pieces all over on the opposite side. And there's a trick I like to do for that. So let's grab all of this. And then I'm going to deselect the actual head itself. Now, let's see, did I miss anything? I missed this guy. I think that's everybody else, though. So now let's go to group. And I want to group all that stuff together. And it looks like it was already grouped to something. Oh, undo. I grabbed a piece of the foot by accident. We don't want to do that. So you go away. Now, why doesn't it want to group? Make a much more clever selection. Somebody must already be grouped in such a way that we can't use groups on that. If we grab everybody, let me try this. Head, decos. Now, let's open the group. I'm going to grab this guy, and I want to remove him from the group. So let's detach him. So that should be everybody else. And we don't need anybody else up here on the front of the group either, or the front of the head. So all these little extra pieces that we're using for deco. Alright, let's detach these as well. What does that leave? Let's take a look here. Now what I would do is I would test this real quick. Let's just slide this out. It looks like all I'm getting is the head decorations, which is good. That's exactly what I want. So let's put those back where they belong, and then we'll close the group back up. And let's just try this. This should work pretty well. Mirror this over. Make sure we're copying. Oh, I'm sliding things around too much. So let's undo that real quick. I really need to turn off those direct 3D materials. Hang on a second, let me do that. So you, and then this guy, you're fine. You are fine, and it's taking a little bit to load, so you got to be a culprit. And you, and you. Okay. So that should speed up undos for a little bit. So let's undo. Oh, see, look at that. Instantaneous undo. That's fantastic. Mirror. Let's pull our mirror center over. And let's see here. If I snap that to grid points. Make sure we check copy. And we've got another copy of that group on the opposite side. So there's all of our decorations on both sides of the head. Now let's see, what are we missing? We're missing this guy. So that's not good. But that should be easy enough to copy over. So let's see if we can handle that with another mirror modifier. That takes care of that. Oh, just make sure you set the mirror to copy. And looking cool so far. So we've got the front done. We now have both sides of the head. I think this is probably a good point to go ahead and stop the video for now. So that is going to wrap things up for this episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max. Thank you all for watching. Also, a big thank you out to all of our member sponsors who make free videos such as this possible. And I hope to catch you guys on the next episode. Take it easy.